Conversations with Friends. And I'm delighted to introduce you today to a multi-award winning photographer, Allen Benowitz. If you probably have heard of him or gone to one of his many, many exhibitions in South Florida, it seems to me that Allen is all over with his photographs, which again have won so much attention over the years. Landscapes, nature, people, adventures, travel. I hope I'm getting that all right, Allen, and more. But today, we're not really here to talk about photos. We're here to talk about something so deep, not that your photos aren't deep, but something so deep that has been affected your life in so many ways and actually transformed your life as a result. And so it might seem like a sad story, but it's an unbelievably hopeful story. It's a beautiful story. And Allen Benowitz, welcome to the program. And here's the book. Can you see it? I hope you can see it. It's called Child of Silence, A Blessing in Disguise. Can you see that? Yes, I think so. And Allen has a story that, I started reading this story when I received it just a couple of days ago, and I haven't been able to put it down. So Allen, congratulations on this story. And no, congratulations on, I would use the word overcoming some really, really difficult experience in one's life.
Thank you, Meredith, for having me on your program. It's nice to see you again.
Yes, I was going to say it's the second time I looked, and it was about 2 years ago, but we weren't talking about this. We were talking about all of your art, your adventures, your travels. But today we're talking really about your early life, your stories. And it all started when you were born, right? And just tell us briefly, about your family and kind of what went on.
Okay. Well, I'm Brooklyn born of deaf parents in Borough Park, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
My earliest memory is when I was 2 years old. My maternal grandparents owned a duplex brownstone, one section of which my mother and father and I lived in. And like I say, my earliest memory was at 2 years old. I recall one spring morning when I was 2 in the crib. There was no air conditioning and the casement windows were open. A bird flying into the bedroom, and it got stuck in my hair, and I was screaming and crying, but my parents couldn't hear me because they were deaf. So it became a very memorable experience for me. But my memory is also percolated by the years. If you give me a year, I can tell you where I was and what I was doing. We lived there for another year or so when we moved to Coney Island. And my parents were separated 4 times when I was 1, 3, 5, and 7. Each time they had another child, which is not a good formula with a poor marriage. My mother was a beautician. She worked part-time. She brought in ladies in the living room of our basement apartment in Coney Island. Remember, they were wearing those spaceship helmet type hair dryers on their heads. My father was a presser in a factory in the garment district in Manhattan. And maintaining 2 households was not quite affordable. And but I really had a great time growing up from 2 to about 7 in Coney Island. It was an amusement park town. I enjoyed the steeplechase, all the rides, the concessions. I used to collect soda bottles for the 2-cent refundable deposits, and that would fund my cost of the rides. And also I bought a shoe shine kit. I became an entrepreneur. And I'd go to the dime, at 5 years old, I'd go to the dime saving bank where all the cronies were hanging out. And for nickel to shine, I shined up many shoes. And if I spit shined it really good and snapped the buffer, I got a penny tip.
So you were an entrepreneur right from the beginning.
Well,
Allen, tell me about your experience. Here, you didn't just have one parent that, couldn't hear. It was 2. Were you aware that life wasn't normal, or did it just feel normal and it wasn't a problem?
No. Well, I was raised in a very silent household.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's ironic that later in life I became a court reporter where I worked as the silent man in the courtroom. But my parents' handicap became my asset, maybe stronger and overcoming. An early memory I have is at 6 years old, I had to learn how to spell because in order to translate for my mother, I had to learn the American Sign Language. And I remember a horse-drawn fruit wagon coming down the street in Coney Island with a clanking scale on it. My mother wanted to buy some fruit, but I noticed that the merchant put his thumb on the scale. And of course, I chewed him out and told my mother what was happening, and I became a protector early in life.
So again, what I see in you is that you just were always someone that just figured things out. You solved problems, weren't you? Which you've continued to do in your life. And your parents, I mean, life was normal in an abnormal way. Could we say that it was normal for you? This is how you grew up. But were you aware that other kids weren't going through something like this, or
Yeah,
not really?
as I got older, I became a little self-conscious of having deaf parents. But the last time I lived with them was when I was 7. Um,
And that's when
one
life
night,
really changed for you.
yeah,
It
I was
really
living
changed.
across from Steeplechase on 19th Street in Coney Island in a basement apartment, and there were 4 of us, 1, 3, 5, and 7. And the welfare department came in at about 10 o'clock at night, I'm guessing, with a paddy wagon outside, and gathered up all 4 children and took us to the first of 3 children's homes and shelters. The third being the Charm. Fortunately, my sister Marilyn and I ended up at the Pride of Judea Children's Home in Brooklyn, which was the best in the city, headed up by Julius Nero. And his son's name, Bernie Nero, changed later on when he became famous as a concert pianist, Peter Nero. And
Oh.
their family became my second family and my mentors.
What's interesting is the other places that you've been placed or been put into when they took you away from your parents and everything were really, really bad. I mean, can you maybe, because that is something that you were able to see the contrast. You
Well,
ended up with something that was so
unfortunately, I learned about
positive.
anti-Semitism with the first place I was in. It was Children's Center in Manhattan. There were about 250 kids. We were the only Jewish family there, and we were not treated well. But I had a counselor named Veronica. She was about 23, very pretty. She saw what was happening and arranged for a social worker to meet with me and got us into the second home, which was the day and night shelter in the Bronx for 6 months before going on to the Pride of Judea Children's Home, where I stayed until I graduated from high school in 1959. And I was given on merit, a scholarship grant to go to business college, where I learned to become a court reporter, and ended up in Miami, Florida on a job offer in circuit court in 1961.
Amazing. Amazing to me, how your life seemed to just, in spite of the obstacles, right? Your life seemed to be moving forward. There was always some kind of an opportunity for you.
Well, I think those challenging times were really an asset because it prepared me in the boot camp of life, and I wouldn't trade growing up in Brooklyn for the world. I learned how to defend myself. I learned how to become independent, and I really enjoyed growing up in the Pride Day. We had counselors who were mentors. Morris Katz was a social worker. I was bullied for 3 years, and he talked me into beating up this kid who was older than me after I got up enough nerve, and I got my self-esteem built up as a teenager, and I had a lot of benefits. We had good counselors. They were all psychology majors. They loved what they were doing, and we had benefits that many children of intact families did not have.
To me, when I hear your story, and again, I've been reading a lot of it, it's really also shows that you were able to have a good life in its way, in a lot of ways, and due to people that cared. And so I'm hoping that, people, that everybody that's, gets inspired, and I'm sure that they will, by seeing that, somebody could have a job and they don't really care, and they take care of people, maybe older people or children or whatever, and they just do, the minimal amount of work, whereas you didn't have people like that around you. You grew up with very, very accomplished, loving, caring people taking care of you. So you had a family, didn't you? Another family besides your parents.
Yes, I never claimed victimhood. I learned a lot. I realized before long that instead of making mistakes on my own to learn, I would learn from the experience of others, and being surrounded by people older than me, I benefited from that and made fewer mistakes, and I learned a lot early in life that carried me forward.
So would you say it was because of these people? That's what I think, but also somehow something within you seemed to always be moving forward,
Yeah,
which I could see,
chemistry has something to
you
do
know?
with it. Yeah, chemistry has something to do with it.
Yeah, so just life just kept going on for you. Just love when you talk about Coney Island. I was there just a few years ago when they reopened, and it was, I don't know if I'd ever been there before. I didn't live in New York. I grew up here, Miami, but maybe I'd been there before. But it was a joyful, fun place. And you, as you said, you even had the opportunity to just have a good time, right? And you weren't.
Was. I went on the scooter rides, the bumper cars. I had the corn on the cob and the barrels, you know. I went to Nathan's hot dogs, uh, cotton candy. I rode on the roller coasters. I remember living at the 19th Street apartment. Every night I heard clickety clack of the roller coaster going up to the top, and all of a sudden people screaming on the way down. Well, that kept me up initially, but it became eventually white noise, and I live with it. Now, here's a picture of the parachute ride icons of Coney Island and the Wonder Wheel, Ferris wheel.
Oh, this is on the book.
Of it.
Yes, behind you. Yes, here's the book. And I don't know if people can see, just by looking on the screen here, but this is not a small book. This is not like 30 pages of someone's story. How many pages are we talking about with this book?
431, but 65 pages have photographs.
Oh, okay, but it's
So
still
it's a lot
a
less.
lot of
Yeah,
information
and
in this
also there are a
book.
lot of short chapters, and it's a quick read. And the longest chapter is when I met in 2005 a woman who called me one day. It was the most pivotal moment in my life, saying, "Alan, my name is Bonnie Winters. I believe I'm your next sibling. I never knew I had another sister in 2005, 20 years ago."
Unbelievable.
And what
Unbelievable.
happened was the matriarch of our family, my Aunt Ida, my grandmother Jenny's sister, said, "Julia can't raise a fifth child by herself." And she was pregnant at the time, and I didn't know that. I just thought my mother gained some weight. And she was given up for adoption, went to a foster home for 6 months, and then adopted by a nice family in New York City. And we met because she always wanted to find her natural mother, birth mother. And her husband at the time looked up on the internet. Her birth certificate said, "Baby Benowitz, born in Brooklyn." So her husband at the time searched that on the internet, and I had moved in 2005, living temporarily in a rental apartment while my condominium was being modified. And so I had no permanent address. But a national article in the Court Reporter Journal was about my segue from court reporting to fine art photography as I came into my retirement years. And it started out by saying, H. Allen Benowitz, Brooklyn born of deaf parents. Bingo, made the connection. At the end of the article, they had my cell phone number, and she called me. And that's Bonnie.
That
My
must
sister
have been an
Bonnie.
experience of a lifetime,
It's the
as you
longest
say.
chapter in the book. Everything else is pretty short, relatively speaking.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting, the way you write the book. I mean, there are so many, and I'm thinking because you're a photographer and you've excelled in photography, it's kind of like seeing things quickly and experiencing them. Each chapter is short and you go on to the next and the next. Is that kind of how you think, that something doesn't have to be long and drawn out? There's so many chapters in here, and
Yeah.
the stories are not so long, but they get to the point and they have some kind of a message,
A
each
number of my
chapter.
readers said that they read the book in 2 or 3 days. They couldn't put it down. So I'm very flattered by that. And I appreciate your accelerating the reading process yourself in time for this interview. You're a
I'm
great
not the
interviewer.
fastest reader in the world, but I read a lot. Really, because Alan, it just pulls you in. You want to know more and you want to know more. And I'm amazed that you're able to put together a book like this. You weren't a writer, right? You were a court reporter, so there's some connection there. And
Well,
you're a photographer, which you see things like, you see visually, and a lot of your book is very visual. Excuse me.
okay.
Um,
when you say I'm not a writer,
No, I don't know that you weren't a writer before, like a person
I
that
never
writes
published
for a
books.
living kind of thing.
I did
Yeah.
publish over 30 to 50 articles nationally on
Okay.
video conferencing, videotaping, litigation support in my profession, and of course, my photography. Um,
Yeah.
but this is the first time I wrote a book, a
Yeah.
memoir, nonfiction. About 20 some odd years ago, a movie producer who was the winner of the Dade County Film and Video Competition spoke to me in Q&A session after the movie I viewed in the theater. And we talked, and he said, you know, our stories are very similar. Mine was in Europe and yours is here. I think you've got a movie to be made. But I already had my business I was busy with, segueing to photography, my personal life, and I couldn't do it because he said, you have to write the book first. So I kept personal notes over the years. I sent an email to myself, my laptop, and I copied and pasted it into a Word file on my computer. And my outline was by decade and years. And then later on, I changed them to chapters. But I decided by the beginning of of last year that I was going to complete the book, write it and complete it. And I'm pretty fast. I type 75 words a minute. I'm a court reporter. I spell with grammar. And so I started writing, putting it together in April and finished it on August 4th of last year and published it in December.
So you're
Ironically,
quick. You get things done fast, don't you?
yeah, but
And maybe
ironically,
that's photography, right? You don't have much time to get the best picture, right? You got to shoot and that's it.
it's a moment. You have to capture the moment.
The moment, which is what you do in this book. You capture so many moments, so many experiences. Alan, how were you able to remember all of this? I mean, I look back at my life and I can remember a few things. I wish that I remembered more, but you seem to remember like every second of your life.
A lot of my readers and friends said the same thing. It's the same question.
Really?
So many things that occurred to me were kind of not normal, outstanding in a way, good, bad, or indifferent. And I would keep in touch with the kids from the Pride and people in my life along the way. And I would save my writings. I would make notes. And wasn't until one alumnus, Stan Friedland, said, Alan, about 10 years ago, you have to write your book. He was an alumnus in the previous decade. I was there in the 50s, he was there in the 40s. And he published 2 books. So he was a mentor and gave me the impetus to eventually write the book, in addition to the movie producer.
So was the writing itself, you said you had already been collecting all of these stories and everything.
Yeah, I had my experiences as a court reporter, international assignments. I had experiences with people who were meaningful to my life. And again, it's an inspirational story that I would hope would help a lot of children and adults who have gone through similar experiences become enthusiastic about and identify with.
Yeah. Is that your message? I mean, to me, that's what I took, is that whatever you go through in life, you know, it might not be what you went through, but wherever you've suffered, you know, family situations, illness, whatever, you know, people, poverty, all the things, that you can go on with your life and you can overcome and
Well,
succeed.
I learned to always maintain a positive attitude. As I said, I did not consider myself a victim. Every time I did something or had someone help me, it got better. I learned from each experience, and I had just somehow an innate desire to improve my life and to share it with others. You know, while I didn't have many material things younger in life, but what became more important were meaningful relationships, people that I knew, and that was my priority in life.
And you seem to cherish these relationships wherever they are. Like you say, whether you were in a shelter, whether you were in a home, whether you had parents, you know, that couldn't speak to you. You
Well,
just,
I could translate and communicate with them.
so I don't know if the word's innovator, but you're a person, you're resilient. You always, or you figure things out. You're very good, a problem solver, let's say that, right?
Well,
You
yeah,
figure things.
I conducted the first videotape deposition in the country in 1972, formed the first video conference in the nation 1989 as the president of Link, and other things, legal technologies that were perpetuated my interest in my work.
So again, you're just a person that's always going on to the next thing. You don't dwell on the past, for me, do you? And so would you say maybe that's part of your message with this book?
I remember the past because I learned from it, but I move on to the future as well.
So what are you hoping for now with this book? I'm sure just to reach a lot of people and to get this message across, because it is a child of silence, a blessing in disguise. I mean, that things that we go through could be blessings, terrible things that we could go, everybody's been through something or will at some.
I learned from everything, For example, at 5 years old, I was visiting my paternal grandparents in the Bronx, and I saw my grandfather's arm, blue numbers on his forearm. Grandpa, what is that? He didn't want to talk about it, but then my grandmother told me he was in a concentration camp. He escaped. If he didn't escape, you and I wouldn't be talking today. So I learned early in life about anti-Semitism and the plight of the Jewish people. And there's a lot more in the book that I don't want to belabor the time we're taking for this chat we're having, but I just feel very blessed and fortunate. The week before last, the Miami Herald published a half-page story on a National Book Review, and 2 days before that, USA News did a newswire nationally, and
I
it's
read that, yeah.
getting a lot of attention. And I want to tell my story, and I think I've told it through my book, and those that have written me by email or on Facebook and by phone to inquire further. It's my pleasure, and it's important that I feel I can share this. Children's causes became important in my life. My first exhibition, I donated to the Children's Home Society of Florida, 10% of my sales, and
Beautiful.
continued. And David Lawrence is a child advocate, and I've contributed to his causes, and we're now friends. And so it's giving back at this point.
So you've gotten a lot in your life in spite of the obstacles and the difficulties, but like you say, you keep giving. And would you say in a way that is the true secret to life, to a good life, is giving rather than what can I get? And that's what I take from you. You're that kind of a person, even what
And I'm
you just
very
said.
fortunate in my lifetime relationship with Terry Diamond, and her family's become part of my family. And they live in the same building at the cricket club here. And we have a 1.5-year-old grandchild that Terry gets to see every day. So we're enjoying life a little bit.
I get the feeling that, I mean, you're enjoying life, but you don't stop. I get the feeling you're not sitting around doing nothing. You're always on to the next project and the next project, right?
Yeah, my next project, I've been asked, will I write another book? I said, well, I'm 83 years old. I'm sure I can't write a book along this nature again. However, I'm going to be writing a retrospective book on my photography, all of my travels, and all those are fortunate award-winning images that I've been able to share around the country. And that's next on the agenda in the coming year.
So life is very good. It's very, very busy. Again, you're always moving on to something else. And do you see yourself as a giver? And I don't mean to be egotistical, but, to have ego
Yes.
about it, but just do you see that you're here to give rather
Yes.
than take?
I received and benefited early in life, and I feel that I engage in payback whenever I can, and paying things forward.
Paying
And
things forward. Wasn't there once a movie like that, Pay It Forward, I think, and
yeah,
is that the secret to a good life to you?
yeah, just keep it positive and go forward,
And keep moving forward and keep
and
taking pictures.
having people around me who are very supportive and sharing and maintaining memorable experiences. It's been great.
I wanted to just leave with one more thought, is Child of Silence, and that's the cover of the book, Child of Silence. Can people see it, or should I hold it up? A Blessing in Disguise, your book, your new book, your very, very powerful book, inspiring book. So the silence part, you grew up in silence, and are you still drawn to silence today?
Well, I am. I just finished watching the movie Coda about a young lady whose parents were deaf.
Mhm.
I identified with that very much. And I saw it back in 2001, but I saw it again and I appreciate it even more now. But my parents' handicap actually really became my asset. I developed a sense of concentration that was beneficial in my work and as a court reporter. And I learned how to lip read, sign, and it helped me a lot as a court reporter. When attorneys and witnesses would mumble, I would be following context and concentrate, and those sounds became identifiable words if I couldn't hear them correctly.
So again, when I hear your story, and I've read a big part of your story, what I see is just a real impact on what you have to say. And I think that's the beautiful thing, because we need more. It's not just positive stories, it's stories, of overcoming obstacles, going through something and going beyond, and being resilient and being resourceful. And you've been all of that. And, I did want to say that this was a book kind of later in life that you wrote, right? So, I mean,
But
that
harking back to
was
when I was 2 years old.
what? Going back to when you were two. And this book is just filled with experiences and I think because you're a photographer, there's a lot of visual ideas, like we were talking about Coney Island. Like, it's not just reading, what you went through or anything, it's seeing it. You can almost see it.
I've also shared some humorous experiences that I've had. And I have proofread the book 3 times, and I even go back now and enjoy certain chapters that were meaningful to me. And I just feel very fortunate.
You are fortunate, and
Share it with
what's
others.
beautiful, Alan, is that you help others, with their fortune, because everybody has some opportunity, I think. I really believe, in life, but they're not always aware, because people are often feeling sorry for themselves. They're complaining, they're bitter, and there's none of that in you that I've seen and read. And
People who hear about it ask me, how can we get the book? And I said, just go on Amazon.com and you get it.
you get it the next day. That's the cool thing, isn't it? Thank you, Amazon, right? No, it's good. And life is good for you. And I'm just thrilled to get to interview you again. It's a totally different interview than we did 2 years ago, because we spent, the whole time on your amazing journeys all over the world. So you're on the Brahma Kumari's meditation site. So you have to one day come. I know you've been to India, but you have to come with us one day to India, where there's a lot of sites on the top of the mountain at the meditation
I've been to
headquarters.
India once. It was a very meaningful experience there too. But I
Um,
really enjoyed and appreciate the ability to share this with you, Meredith. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful, as always, to get to talk with you, to get to see you again. And I don't even have to say it, but I will continued success with everything you do. I don't have to say it because I know it, Continued success, Alan.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much. Yeah. And thank you all for watching.